Have you ever encountered a hurdle with launching or growing your business? Listen, there are two things that run a business, the back end and your soft skills.
Telling you right now, if these aren't in place, you'll lose clients and you'll lose money. You don't want that? Well, you're in the right place.
Hey, I'm Dana.
Hey, I'm Sarah.
We're your hosts of the Entrepreneur Encounter, and we're going to give you a behind-the-scenes glance into our businesses, give you genuine feedback, tips and tricks, plus occasionally bring on guests that care about supporting you to grow your business organically and nurturing authentic relationships. Are you ready?
In today's episode, we sit down with Lila Turner, London-based entrepreneur and founder of Relationship Ready, a business that helps high-performing leaders find meaningful love without turning dating into a KPI checklist. Welcome to Entrepreneur Encounter, where we talk about the importance of soft skills, personal and professional development. We're your hosts, Sarah and Dana. In today's episode, we're talking about how emotional intensity doesn't always equal emotional intelligence, why soft skills often develop after the pressure-filled 20s, how to stop over-assessing and start showing up with presence. If you loved this episode, leave a review and share it with a friend who might be stuck in their head when it comes to dating or leadership. Welcome to the show, Lila. We're so excited to have you here today. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself and how soft skills have impacted your life?
Thank you so much for having me. It's really lovely to get to meet you kind of a bit more with a bit more time today. It's really lovely. So I'm Lila Turner. I'm based in London. I run two businesses. One is called One Thought with my husband who founded that business. And the other business that I run is called Relationship Ready. That I founded about 10 years ago with the desire and passion to solve the dating struggle of people who could make anything in their life work except love. So it really was a passion project that turned into a business that takes up a lot of my time now in a really wonderful way. In terms of your questions for soft skills, I think it's such a good question because I think if I would describe myself, I've historically been a big ball of non-soft skills, just a bunch of emotions without any skills is probably clearer to my experience. I don't feel like I naturally have had soft skills because I've always been quite emotional. But I think when I was very young, emotions were a lot more neutral. So I was very, very intuitive as a kid. I think if you get a lot of kids, they walk into a room and they just know, when we're really young. So I think I probably had better soft skills at 5 than I did at 20.
That is quite interesting because oftentimes that can happen because when you are a child, it almost seems like you're more in tune. It's different when you're a child, but when you're in your 20s, more often than not, you might have a little bit of soft skills, but not so much. But I think as time goes on and you build and you grow and you talk and have conversations and all those things, like your soft skills start to grow within yourself, especially like when you're saying that you started your business as a passion project. We started this podcast as a passion project. It's looking in those skills. Do you have the capability to do your job? Do you have the self-awareness of your emotions so that you're able to do work on your business? And especially the fact that what you do and help people find love, that in itself is amazing because the way your life is personally is going to affect you professionally. It's all connected.
Yeah, it's totally connected. And I think for me, emotions just swept me over. Like I often look back at my 16-year-old self, which I don't know if I would have listened, but how unsure I was in this growing, changing body. But really in my 20s was probably the most difficult period because I felt like every decision weighed a ton and mattered so much. I was crushed by every decision because I thought it all mattered so much. So that was like almost like the most chronically difficult time I've ever had. But you're supposed to be amazing and confident. I'm quite glad I'm not like a 20-year-old now where there's all this pressure to be amazing. Almost like all young people are required to be an entrepreneur or to be all these things rather than to discover what comes to them naturally. But it was very difficult in my 20s because I was just so racked with seriousness. So I had to learn how to in a way, take those feelings as maybe not the most intelligent version of me. But that took a while. See, that was probably the biggest learning I ever had, was intensity didn't mean it had a good point. I mean, my soft skill path has been quite wonky. It went from my 20s being like everything mattered so much that I lived in overwhelm and thought if I worked hard enough, I could sort of iron it all out. If I stayed up later, if I worked harder than everyone else, if I solved all the problems, not just mine, but everybody else's, then I would solve the problem that I felt inside of me, which was anxious. And it took years. It wasn't until my mid-30s that I really saw the work that I'm doing now had relevance to me, which is that your feelings are telling you something and probably not what you think they are.
Yeah, I believe for me too, when I was in my 20s, I think this happened for a lot of people too. You're either living in the moment or you feel like if I don't make the decision now, it's going to, there's a lot that you have to learn in your 20s. I mean, you're going from like living at home to now you're living on your own and you're doing all these things. I know I didn't even think about entrepreneurship until 5-6 years ago when I was like, oh, maybe I can start my own business. And I think there's a point in your life where you start to realize what actually matters for yourself and the impact that you can have. Because I believe that if you're running a business, it needs to make some sort of impact. Of course, you start a business because you want to make money and do all these things, but how are you actually making an impact on the world or in your community? Tell me a little bit about how you're able to impact the clients that you work with. How does what you do help them throughout their life?
Well, I mean, like I said, when I first started, my history background is in the creative field. I was a high-end fashion designer for many years.
Oh, that sounds fun.
And when I pivoted from that, I was doing high-end children's wear. So I lived in America for 10 years. Came back to England. My husband wanted to set up a business. I went from women's wear into children's wear, high-end children's wear. It was sort of by accident that I had a very deep experience of what I would call a deeper mind at one of the conferences he was doing. And I dropped into a very deep feeling of contentment, and my mind felt gentle for the first time that I can remember. And gentle was not part of my palette. Caring mixed with suffering, passion mixed with burnout was, opinions mixed with double guessing. There was intensity in there, but gentle and contentment and nourishment was nowhere to be seen. And that sort of accident, and really the only thing that happened is as I just sat somewhere and listened to something other than my own thoughts for a few days. And I naturally dropped into something. And I'm like, well, this is weird. I don't know what happened because I didn't achieve a tick list, a goal. I didn't get a degree. I didn't get my way. I thought if I got my way, I would feel good. It turns out it doesn't taste that good. So when I started to look at, there's a deeper mind available, and this is weird because I realized in that moment intuitively, I must have been walking around with these more deeper feelings the whole time, but my head was going too fast. It sort of pulled me out of it.
Yeah.
Because I was living like a kind of wild, whirling dervish in my head, trying to make myself happy by achieving things nonstop. I was one of those people that would sit on the couch, absolutely exhausted, think I'm finally going to get a break. And then within 6 seconds notice, I haven't loaded the dishwasher. Or, I haven't sent that email. Or hang on, I've forgotten one thing. And I just couldn't ever let myself off the hook. So when I started to realize for me personally, there was something else available, like that was really profound, I wanted to learn to be happier myself. So I trained with one thought. Not with the idea of helping any clients at all. I wanted to just be, you know what it was? This is a really low bar, but I wanted to feel that feeling 5% of the time because I didn't think more than that was possible.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
I traveled the world. I've been to Hawaii. I've been to all these incredible places, but you can go somewhere gorgeous and be thinking, how do I be productive on holiday?
That could be challenging, but you got to step back.
I know, but if your mind is the boss of you, it's not so easy. But anyways, when I realized it was relevant to me, I fell in love with whatever this is, like this deeper mind, these resources that we're walking around with, but we're not using. When I started eventually working with One Thought, my clients were leaders. They were entrepreneurs. They were business owners. They were senior leaders. And they were people who were in charge of things. They were making multiple decisions. And carrying the weight of that very, very kind of vibrant and alive in their business world. But I kept seeing and meeting these leaders who could do anything out there. They had amazing friendship groups. They had traveled. They did the hobbies. They were a member of all these interesting clubs and places. And they just had this really incredible life. But the love life was the one area that wouldn't thrive. That they'd throw strategy at it. They'd try and meet friends, get set up through friends. They'd use a dating agency. They'd do all of the tools that you're sort of almost like they pivoted their entrepreneurial skills and sort of threw it at their dating life, and it didn't work. And then eventually think, well, I've not been specific enough, so I'm going to have to drill down. It's kind of like, okay, well, how do I KPI the deal? How am I going to make every date, single conversation count? And how do I assess and get rid of things quickly if it's not working? And actually, at that time, I had a client who I was working with for One Thought, and it was not to do with dating. And she mentions that she's yearning for a relationship and had tried everything. She was just gorgeous. Like, she's capable. She was on her second or third business, did not need someone to look after her. She wasn't looking for someone to come in and give her material things. She just wanted someone to share the softer things at the end of the day, like I would call pillow talk.
Yeah. Don't we all want that?
Yes. But it was like, during the time I worked with her, she really softened and kind of got quiet, and I could see how sweet her heart was. But I could see that the way she showed up to dating and to actually a lot of social situations was to be a powerhouse. Like, she was really capable, but never off duty. And I realized, I'm not sure people can see who's behind the capability. And her heart is so incredible. And I remember thinking, I wonder what thinking is getting in the way of finding a relationship that means something to her. It has to be thought. It has to be thought. And I was like, what's the thought? Because I don't know. I wonder if I went to find out what would happen. It was like an emotional science experiment. What would happen? Because she's killer attractive. She's super interesting. She doesn't need all the things you would assume people are looking for. There was so much she had to offer, but I couldn't understand why it wasn't working for her. So I ended up kind of gut instinct running a retreat. And she invited some people. I told people about it. And I had this group of entrepreneurial leadership women. And I was like, let's find out together. And we spent 2.5 days together. And what I found was that there was thoughts that were showing up for these women in their relationship life that were totally invisible and affecting not only what they saw in front of them, like the people in front of them, but the feeling they showed up in made it very difficult for connection to happen. So what happened is the way that I could see is like, oh, I'm going to see if you make that thinking visible, so it would be an example that would be real classic, jumping ahead into the future. If you want success, right, it'd be like people show up often hiring for a role. They'll interview somebody and they're not sitting there going, hey, this is he's cute or she's cute. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, I wonder. It's like, okay, well, can I see my friends with them? What would our kids look like? And would they fit into my life? And why do they do that? They didn't open the door for any. And then the mind is assessing, right? Because we don't want to put ourselves in danger. We don't want another disappointment because that's humiliating. But the assessment was blocking any intuition and also making people disconnected from themselves. Because when you're assessing, you can't be connected to a deeper part of you and assess. And I mean like ruminating, worrying, assessing. So they would jump ahead in the future. I'm like, okay, let's make that thought visible and see if it still makes sense. So what I started to do with my clients is started to show them, well, what does it feel like to race ahead in the future? And so they would kind of describe, oh, well, I'm already going here. And then I'm thinking about this. And really what they're doing is leaving the room. So when you make an unhelpful thought visible, people start to catch on. They're like, oh, yeah, I stopped being present. Oh, yeah, that felt anxious. Oh, yeah, that felt. Now, sometimes they might argue with me and say, well, no, I got to make sure. But actually, when they get quiet, people intuitively know that the feeling tells them, oh, yeah, that doesn't feel helpful. The feeling of worry actually doesn't keep you safe because all the times you've had a deep intuition is when you weren't thinking so much. So then I would kind of start to work on other thoughts like, assessing, do they like me? Do they like me? So there was all these loads of thinking that people would show up with on a date. And I don't just mean sitting down in the restaurant or going to the bar or going for coffee. I mean, before they've even showed up, they're already elevated themselves way up into their head. They're analyzing, guessing, they're self-conscious. And then that version showing up. And because it doesn't go well, then they feel kind of crestfallen. And they're like, you know how many women I've worked with that will say, you know what? I would rather go home and rewatch Star Trek runs or put time into my business than waste my time on another date, because my energy matters, my time matters.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I want to keep pouring into something that's like a leaky bucket. So, one of the talks I do sometimes for groups is called, Are You Wasting Your Time with Dating? And the truth is, if you are using the same thoughts to date, yes, you are. So in a way, I help people become a lot more entrepreneurial in their thinking with dating. So I help them get visible to the thoughts that are contaminating their ability to be present and see what's in front of them. I'm a big advocate for not staying all the way through a dinner. If something doesn't feel right, you're allowed to leave. You're allowed to say no. You don't even have to sit through a coffee. But people will tough it out. But you don't want to leave because you're feeling reactive and insecure. You want to leave because it just doesn't sit right with you. And there's a very big difference between the two.
So if you're on a date and like you were saying, if you don't want to be there, leave. Because now if you're going to stay all the way through, you're wasting your time. Just like if you were to build your business and create a service, and it's like all these things. So there are a lot of skills from being an entrepreneur to that. And finding what you want. It's like your personal and your professional life is connected, because you have to be happy. And if you're not happy, you need to figure out like, okay, what would make me happy? Maybe it's living in the moment, or maybe it's finding the person that can sit with me for 3 hours and just have a conversation about whatever comes up. But if it's not something that you want, don't feel that you have to do it. And I think that's a great point, because if you're going to sit there and do it just because, and you're not happy about it, then what's the point? You're wasting your time. Like you said,
Right.
Wasting time.
And what's fascinating, is such a good point, is that most people, whether they admit it or not, if they've had a couple of dry runs and it's not really going, they start to create the idea that a tick list is going to solve it for them. I mean, they may say, no, I don't have one. You're like, but what are you looking for? And they go, what I discovered about a tick list is that a tick list is based on a guess of what's going to make you happy. It's basically a list of insecurity. Okay, they need to travel a lot. That translates as, I don't want to be bored.
Oh, that's great.
They've got to earn a certain amount of money. It means it translates as, I felt really vulnerable and someone took advantage of me before and expected me to be the one that did everything. It translates down into sort of and really it's an avoid of not what will make me happy. It's I am worried will make me unhappy. That's what a tick list is often. Now, what's interesting is this was fascinating because it was a bit of a science project. One of the things that came out of working with people is 99, and I say that because it could possibly be 100, but I feel like I should just give the 99% of percentage of my clients, when they meet someone and fall in love, they say, I never would have picked them. I don't get it.
Isn't that crazy how that works?
I never would have picked them because it doesn't match up with what they thought would make them happy.
Yeah.
So a tick list not only is a list of insecurity, it's also lacking imagination. So burn your tick list because happiness will never fit on that page. It will never fit there. And what happens is when people meet people, so often I'll be working with a client and we're having sessions and check-in calls. And at some point they call me and they say, hey, Lila, and they're different. And I'm like, okay, what happened? And I sit down, I get really settled. And they're like, I fell in love. And they'll describe what happened. And I'll say, well, what happened? They said, he or she just turned up and there was just something about them.
Mm.
And I'm like, tell me about that. Because normally people's head is like, if it's a role, it's a romantic role I'm hiring for. They don't willing to slow down necessarily and think, well, is that person interesting? So much of the time they'll be like, I don't know. And it might be online on a dating app. It might be meeting them through a work event. Something will go off deep inside of them and resonate with them. And it will kind of something clicks and it just says, there's something interesting here. Now, what people will often do is they will go, woo, there's a connection, and they'll freak out and chase it and then kill it.
I've seen it happen quite often.
Right.
It's like, no, just take your time.
Yes, slow down. You know how your cats have the toys and you shake around the fake little creature and the cat pounces on it? People really want connection. So people will chase after a connection rather than slow down and say, okay, well, what is it? Why don't I take it one step in front of the other, one conversation at a time, and allow myself to enjoy it? So it's fascinating because when they follow that, they will often choose someone they would never normally have picked. Often the photo is terrible. I've had one person say bad photos because they're always the good ones.
Oh, that's too funny.
Because it's like usually these people are not super pro, they're a bit awkward. But you've got to go for the feeling. Trying to find a profile to marry, you're just looking to resonate with another soul. That's it.
That right there, exactly. Resonate with another soul. That is amazing. So with what you do and the people that you work with, right? So they're often in like leadership, entrepreneurs, and all of that. Do you ever see that when somebody does find somebody that they're happy with, the impact that it makes on their business versus if they didn't find that person?
Here's the cute thing. So because I'm usually working with actually business owners a lot of the time, I do warn them ahead of time. I say, look, this is going to impact your business, just so you know. Because I had one client who basically, we were just talking about relationships and how you show up to them. We kind of were making it a lot more neutral. Like, at what state of mind are we showing up in? Let's see, are we listening? Are we present? Or are we racing ahead in the future? Or do we constantly feel like we got a job? And she said her revenue went up by 30% without any sales because she was more present.
Look at that.
So I see a uptake in people's business because I'm dealing with the emotional part of relationships. Your business is a relationship.
Yeah.
It's a relationship to the people you work with, to the clients you have, and to the wider world. And it's also a relationship to yourself. So that's a huge focus of my work is, well, all right, fine. You've got all of this going out here. You've got how are you with your team? How are you with your friends? But how are you with yourself? And that's a huge piece that gets missed. People think being in a good relationship with yourself is occasionally taking yourself for a massage or buying yourself something nice. What do you walk around in is the question you should be asking yourself. Are you walking around with a generous, loving relationship with yourself? And one of the biggest things that impacts and simplifies relationships, romantic and business decisions, is how comfortable are you utterly trusting what feels right and what doesn't feel right without needing it to make sense on paper.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I think I was in my late 20s. I heard it somewhere where somebody said that like you have to be able to love yourself to be able to give love to other people or something like that. To me, that like didn't make sense because I'm in my 20s. I'm like, whatever. I like myself, but I didn't really understand how you can love yourself and be present with yourself. And I think it was after having my first kid and being in my long-term relationship with my now husband is that like now going deep into myself and realizing that like I actually do love myself. Like, okay, in order for me to love another human being, I need to figure out who I am. And that took me a while to figure out and understand and how that works and to truly understand that being self-aware of my feelings and my emotions and loving myself, I feel like I'm being able to be more present and be able to give more to my family and to my loved ones. And I think that knowing that, and now where I'm at in my life now, I'm able to show up the way I want to show up in my business, in my personal life, all those things. And I think that's great that if you know who you are as a person, and then you would be able to give that back to somebody else.
Yeah, without it being like a deficit thing.
Yeah.
Right? The image comes to me as like a little rowboat in the ocean and then water's pouring in. And as soon as it comes in, you're taking it out and giving it to someone else. I think our boat needs to be full of really incredible feelings because then you're not emptying out your boat. It's overflowing. There's more than enough to go around because you are comfortable living in a good feeling. And we often wait for the world to give us permission, or we have to achieve enough to feel good. And that was one of the big insights I had around my business this year. I kind of got so lost in some logistics. So I've always loved the client-facing work. I've always felt utterly alive. I'm like, yeah, Just please don't make me do an email. I want to do just this bit forever. Right. But
Yeah.
there's always other bits to do. And, I had a sort of ambiguous relationship with that. And then I had just this time where I was launching the book, I was doing all these events, and it was just feeling really clunky and hard. And it's like one of those moments I work with my husband on one of our businesses, but on Relationship Ready, it's me. And sometimes I feel like a dust bunny in an empty cardboard box, like a little bit like rolling around on my own, a bit lonely, like some of those thoughts. And I was frustrated that things weren't lining up the way I wanted them to. And I realized I was waiting for my logistics and this to line up before I was willing to feel good. And I was conditional. I don't know about you, but I just feel like sometimes I have 1,000 mini crash and burns. They're tiny, but they're a sort of death of some kind of ego that's frustrated. And I kind of let it go. I was like, what are you missing, Lila? And I was like, oh, you are waiting for your life to line up before you feel vibrant and alive. And I was like, oh, it's the wrong way round. I have to fill my boat first. And it was amazing because it literally changed. The next 6 months after that, it felt like an entirely different game, so to speak. Because before I was trying to get those things to line up, I was fatigued and there was a lot of events. And I was just, start with you. Go to the bit that you're aiming for and live it now. And then you do the other things and you do them through generosity rather than the requirement to feel like you're doing them in order to feel good.
Yes, for sure. Just enjoy. Whatever brings you joy is going to bring you happiness. And I think that is going to make your day better and have great conversations with people, because I love having conversations with people. And it's so much fun just to hear their different perspectives, and it lights me up as well. So anything that gets me on the phone or a call or whatever, I'm like, yes, let's do it. So you mentioned that you have a book. Can you just briefly talk about your book a little bit?
Okay, so I'm going to try and do the 6-second intro. I never thought I'd write a book. Grew up profoundly dyslexic and quite frightened of the written page. The only reason why I started writing was I wanted to be able to write about our programs. We were doing a lot of events at the time. At one thought, this is before Relationship Ready. And every time I tried to write something, it felt like a sort of really uncomfortable date where I was trying to impress. And it felt really ick. I totally icked myself out. Whenever I'd write something, I'd see it on the page, I'm like, ew, ick. I wouldn't want to go to that. Ick. I don't even know if I didn't have ick in vocabulary, but now I can see it. Every time I wrote something, it just grossed me out. I was like, oh God, trying too hard. I was like, I don't like this. If this is going to be part of my journey, I should learn how to feel the authenticity of what I'm alive about, because our events, we're doing it by choice. We could do something else if when we're choosing to do this. So why don't I find a way? So I did a writing class, fell in love with it, much to my surprise, because I didn't think of myself as capable when it came to words. At the same time, Relationship Ready was really picking up, and I was getting all these client stories where I just kept getting bowled over by what was possible, because again, it started as an experiment. I kept finding, I remember one time speaking to a client, my cheeks are hurting, they're hurting on the phone. She's telling me how in love she is and how surprised. And I was like, okay, I want to write about these stories. And then my writing teacher looked at the very first draft one chapter and said, you have to write about yourself. And I'm like, oh, no, it can't be. And then I was like, I don't know where to start. That's so uncomfortable. That's like standing in a parking lot half dressed, just so public. But what I did was I got really quiet and neutral about it and realized, well, when did my relationship learning start? And it was at 16 in my first relationship. So I started to talk about my experience of love and being in relationships from the get-go. And what was fascinating is I didn't realize until the book was done is that really I thought it was about all my external relationships. Oh, that guy was this way and he was this way. And I realized, it was me that was wobbling. It was me that was falling in and out of trust of myself. It was me that was trying to figure out who I was. They were kind of like a vehicle for that. But every relationship we have, I've heard this somewhere, that you're discovering who you are through another person.
Isn't that so interesting how that works? It's fascinating.
Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was so fixated on the outside. And I could see this wonky line of me trying to figure out how to be comfortable in my own body, have a voice, be able to say how I felt, be vibrant and alive, but also be able to sit in a good feeling. And it was like all of these very complex, but also very simple human things it was really profound writing these stories and also going back to the moments where you kind of felt ashamed or shame and all of these feelings that don't look like a great idea to revisit. But actually, I learned so much from having to write about them. I had to get so much more neutral rather than wanting to sort of dust them away and put them in the junk drawer in the kitchen. Like, yeah, that happened, then away. So it ended up, I wrote about my experience. I got so much from writing about it. And I got so much, I don't know if I want to use the word healing, but I got a lot of fresh energy and compassion for myself, for the good and the bad decisions. And then I wrote the stories I chose, I think, 6 clients. I wanted to tell their stories. They're very varied. I like 4 of them is called like Divorce Ready, because one client came to me that wanted to be able to go back into the world with an open heart rather than the crushed, jaded one. So there's all different stories in there, but most of them are usually around what does it look like to have a different relationship with yourself and then pick a person, right? So that's kind of the theme. And then I have a little book of dating, which is the desire. One of them is called Don't Get Banking Advice from Your Cat.
That's cute.
Because I wanted to show, look, we are not using the most intelligent version of us to try and navigate things that matter.
Yeah.
You might as well get banking advice from your cat if you're going to listen to insecurity.
That's amazing.
It's going to be as reliable. So the idea is that we get so serious. And when I started working with retreats, I found that the pressure would start to dissolve. When people are more lighthearted, they're better learners. When we're serious, we get very stuck in our narrative. And when we become lighthearted, things start to fall away and insight. There's room for insight. There's room for kind of learnings and thoughts to come out of the blue. So that section of the book, the little book of dating, is designed to give a kind of a lighter side to love. And in a way, just to kind of start to say, oh my God, it's not just me. You did that too. Or what if it's not that personal?
That's awesome.
And then kind of my reflections. So that book came out a couple of months ago, and it was a very personal setting. I had quite a few people come up to me, go, whoa, you really share your world, don't you? And I'm like, yes, I did. I didn't know any other way to do it other than to be very authentic and very human, because I don't work with my clients any other way. I'm very like that with my clients. So why would I dress it up in any other way other than be the purest version of what I see and know and what I've discovered and I'm learning, what I'm still learning.
That's awesome. We'll put all the information in our show notes for your books so that everybody can check those out. Where can we find you online? Like website? Are you on social media? All the things.
I am. So our website is relationshipready.co.uk. I have Instagram is on there, Relationship Ready. You can find us on Facebook. So there's lots of ways to connect. And if anybody gets really intrigued, we have some resources on the website. But really the way that what we do is designed is that it's so much easier to have a short conversation around just like what's going on for you and what's tripping you up. Because that human connection, even if you never speak again, just does something to say it out loud. I invite your guests, if they get really intrigued and there's something they want to ask about, they're very welcome to set up a short sort of chat with me to sort of kind of in a way say it out loud.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here and being on the show with us today. So as always, all of our information is going to be in the show notes. Until next time.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really fun chatting. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode. Remember, soft skills aren't just some fluffy buzzwords that get thrown around in the corporate world. They're the key to unlocking your full potential as a professional and a human being. Don't be afraid to invest in yourself and seek out opportunities to improve your soft skills. Sarah and I have a variety of workshops, online courses, and complimentary clarity calls for you to practice in real time with us. Links are always in the show notes. And be sure to join us next time for more insights, tips, and tricks to help you succeed in your entrepreneur encounter.